This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian, Mr. Betcher. Miss Berlin's not here because we recorded this before the 4th of July holiday weekend. So she's out having fun with her family. So, this is Brian and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
Hello. What's going on, man? So Friday before the holiday weekend, right?
Yeah. The holiday being the 4th of July for U.S. Americans here. For everyone else, it's just Tuesday. So, yeah. Yeah, it's nice. But so, with Miss Berlin gone, of course, big diva that she is with the authoring and the talkings and the stuff. So we had to find two people to replace her. So we thought we did a fairly decent job. We have, you've heard of her on the show before. If you haven't, go back and find the episodes where she filled in for Mr. Betcher. We had Miss Magen Wu at Totenkopf on Twitter. Welcome, Megan, to the show again.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Yes. Awesome. So we got one other person. I only know him as Rando. I'm sure he has an actual name and he has a Twitter handle. But welcome, Mr. Rando, to the show.
Dude, I'm so stoked to be here. AKA, you can call me Danny too. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, at the AKACKI at the. But yeah, my mom actually did give me a regular person's name.
Cool. All right. Excellent. So, we'll start with you. Give us a little bit about, because, people who've listened to our show, they may not know who you are. Give us an idea of, your origin story, how you got to be an infosec and where you, what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I always assume nobody knows who the hell I am, because that's usually the case. But no, man, I actually started in tech a long time ago. I used to be in IT for like 10 years, like help desk and desk side and networking and all that kind of stuff. And then I switched over to security about 6 years ago. Because I just, I grew up with hackers. I was one before I even really knew what the word was. And started out, as everybody else does. Just in like a stock and just wanting to know everything about everything. Like it's fire hose opened up, and I was surrounded by a lot of crazy smart people, and luckily I still am. That kind of fueled my fire, and it was pretty much off to the races since then. I'm never gonna hopefully find myself fixing printers ever again, or installing Microsoft Office for the 8 billionth time. But yeah, man, that's like my actual inner hacker woke up, and now I sometimes I bemoan those 10 years, but they actually did a lot of good. And yeah, it's been really off to the races. I mean, I worked at companies like Mandiant and GE, and a not to be named finance company right now. But yeah, I've been really, really lucky, and mostly because of our community. Like, jobs be damned and titles be damned. I've met some of the greatest people and like the coolest like men, women, just whatever that I call friends. So I love it. I love you guys. Like, you're one of the top podcasts that I just really enjoy. That I'm actually a fan of. So I'm so excited to be on.
The check's in the mail. So
I got a mouth to feed.
Nice. So for those of you who don't know Miss Megan, please tell people a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, so I guess I started in tech when I was like 14, 13, volunteering at a veterans hospital where my dad did IT, and kind of grew up there. They taught me how to do stuff. I ghosted my first machine. That was exciting when I was like 14 years old. And then after high school, when I finally had a say about where I could and could not travel, I went to my first Defcon, and then just fell in love with the community and the scene. And from then on, I just kept showing up, and nobody told me to leave. So
that's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice. And you worked at a fairly well-known vulnerability management company as a trainer.
It's a tiny company,
Tiny.
Rapid7. But
Yeah.
and actually, I've changed jobs since we last spoke. I'm no
What?
longer in training. What? Yeah.
What are you doing now?
So I work in their strategic advisory services team,
Ooh,
which is a fancy. I know, so fancy.
strategery.
Strategery. So basically, we go out to companies and we look at their security program using like the 20 CIS critical controls.
Right.
And then we're like, okay, so this is where you are, and you have a really ugly baby. And this is how you have a less ugly baby.
This is how much it's going to cost you to have a not ugly baby.
Right.
Right. Then they blanch and they're like,
Right, because sometimes like the baby doesn't know how to feed itself, and it's just like kind of cockeyed.
Great.
Not that there's anything wrong with cockeyed babies. I'm sure they're still cute.
You gotta see the baby, Jerry. That's a Seinfeld thing.
Right?
Yeah.
It's handsome.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean they're fine, but they just have a much lower resale value.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Danny, how did you hear about the podcast?
Through word of mouth, and then when I met Amanda, and then all of a sudden she was associated her name with you guys, and I mean, but I'd heard of Brakesec for a long time now, just by the Twitterverse, man, just by our little Twitter community that we have. I keep running into Rapid7 people too. That's so funny. It's actually one of your.
Do you need a job?
Right. No, I love where I live. I love myself. I realize I'm on this podcast. No, it's actually one of your compatriots that gave me the name Randa.
Right.
Wait, did you say Miranda?
No, no. There's did you know Jordan Rogers?
Oh my God, Jordan's the best.
Dude, Jordan's the one who gave me the name Rando. Like that's
nice.
Like my very first hacker nick.
That's awesome.
People are in the conversation, but yeah, no. I know a lot of you guys. I'm big fans of you, but yeah, to your question, yeah, that's you guys got a great rap, and it's you see it everywhere.
That's cool. I mean, all that spamming on Twitter is working it out. So that's great.
Yeah. And free advertising just now.
Exactly.
Woo-hoo.
Well, yeah, I find that a lot of people heard about us, but they don't make that step into listening, and it's like sort of a psychological, like they're familiar with the podcast, they just never heard of it, and then somebody says, "Dude, you should really check this out," and they already know about it. So it's just a baby step to actually listen, right?
Yeah.
And then at that point, they are probably hooked afterwards. At least we hope.
Well, yeah, I actually have a podcast much smaller. I think we have like 10 people per week. But yeah, I mean, we do our own little thing, and hopefully people listen and like it. And we actually do video probably to our detriment. We only have like 10 people with this.
What's it called?
Rally Security.
Oh,
okay.
Yes. Okay. I've seen your name on the Twitters as well.
At Rallysec with Ben Heisey and DA667.
Yep.
Okay, nice. He just had a book public come out too.
He did. As he was going through it, I actually went through it too. I did a little bit of like spot checking for him, not as much as some of the other guys did. That's an amazing book, by the way. Like, anybody has a chance to get it, that is $30-some, well worth every single penny. Like, it's amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, so we get together and we kick it every week, and we just like, our big thing is just tribal knowledge here, right? Like I'm sure you guys do, just talking and spreading knowledge and talking to different people and doing interviews for anybody who wants to come and come talk to us.
Yep. Awesome. So the reason we wanted to talk this week was Danny reached out. Actually, I reached out to Danny and asked him if he wanted to come on our show and talk about some things. And Miss Berlin actually had done a talk about this as well, about the mental health of the average information security person, and how we handle, us as information security people, how we handle the stresses of our job, the need to be able to cope with just our general insecurities, because I don't know. I don't know if it's a running gag, but I keep hearing it every time, things like when you go to Defcon or when you go to these things like, hey, I'll be wearing red shoes, because nobody ever looks at each other in the eye. Or, we have, of course, the infosec echo chamber where, infosec appears to be quite varied and diverse as both in people and in the amount of knowledge that we have. And we have haters who hate on certs versus people who, don't hate on certs. And, we're often our own worst enemies, where we're all on the same side, except when we're on our own side. And one of the things that, we see a lot, and Danny and I'm sure Megan and Mr. Betcher and Miss Berlin, if she was here, could tell, is that we have some peccadillos that are often self-destructive behaviors that often need to be brought to light. And maybe some people who are getting into infosec may not know these things, and they may be caught up into the whole environment of like there's Bourbon Con, for instance, at DEF CON, and Vegas, they call it Hacker Summer Camp, but for some people it's a week-long bender where they don't remember the middle of the whole thing, and then they wake up on the plane back home. And so what we wanted to talk about was some of the coping mechanisms in positive ways that don't require us to deal with self-destructive behavior. The reason we had Megan on was she had a whole Twitter blog, for instance. She had a whole series of tweets about stepping away from infosec, dealing with burnout, and finding hobbies and things outside of infosec. So maybe we could start with Danny, and he can talk about what he was going to bring to the table with this argument.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, actually, you had reached out because I was supposed to give a talk on this at Circle City.
Mm-hmm.
And my son came down with strep, and I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. So I was really bummed about that, because those guys at Circle City are awesome. But yeah, so I came at this started earlier, this year, like around December or January. For me personally, it happened a lot earlier. I've been dealing with depression for a really, really long time. Probably longer than I really realized that I had it. And it got around DEF CON last year, when I came back. Something snapped, and the things that I was doing, which is this is why this podcast is going to be really awesome, because the things that I was doing to cope with it weren't working anymore. They used to work really well, and I could kind of get out of that whirlpool, as I call it, which I borrowed from Jason Street. But I was down lower for longer. So I had to pivot to something else. But I didn't want to do this alone. And it got super dark too. It affected a lot. It affects not just your professional relationships, your personal relationships, how you value yourself, no matter how skilled you are. I've worked for some really cool companies that I'm very, very proud of. And I have a lot of really great friends who actually value what I say. But when you're depressed, you don't hear that. You care, you want to care, but it doesn't ring true to your brain anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But so I realized I need help, and I don't care whether it's therapy, I don't care whether it's medications, because they all have their place. But as I go through this, I don't want to do it alone, and I don't want to be quiet about it. I'm never going to get a security clearance anyway, for other reasons we talk about. But which is a big consideration too. I've had a lot of people come into the project I'm doing saying, hey, I'm just going to be some random dude because I don't want it to get back.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't. I don't have anything I have to fear. My community is solid, and luckily my support system is solid, so I can talk about this. And if I can help one other person navigate this, just that feeling of being worthless and being depressed and not being able to get out of bed, let's talk about it, even if it's just my story. So at RallySec, and it came up randomly. Ben had said, hey, you want to do something about mental health? And I was like, well, that's a sign. Let's do that thing. So we came up with about 30 questions. And I put a tweet out, and I was like, if you are dealing or are helping somebody who's dealing with some kind of mental health issue, whether it's like, and I lump all of this, whether it's depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, addiction, whatever, something that just screws your head up. Answer these questions for me, and you can send it. You can encrypt it. That's fine. I'm the only one who's ever gonna know. You have to put your trust in me, but like you got to trust somebody. And I got a huge response. I mean, by huge, I mean I thought I wouldn't get 5 people, and I got between like 30 and 35 response. And it was just generalized questions like, who are you? What do you do? What's the nature of your mental health issue? How do you cope? So from that, I spun up a project, infosanity.org, and I put these stories on the website just for them to be there. If people want to go there and just read these stories so they can relate, right? So they know I'm not alone in this. That is the biggest thing. And then from there, we have a Slack chat room. People send me an email with their email. I invite them, no questions asked. You don't have to have a real name, whatever. So that's the long-winded way of how this all started. Mm-hmm. It's been great. We've got a huge response. They still trickle in from time to time whenever this thing comes up. I mean, then I'll get more emails and people come in. The biggest thing that I want to say is I stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to this, because you have guys like Jack Daniel, you have women, Kelly at Aloria, who's very open about her issues with this, a friend of mine, and Jason Street, who's talked about this at length. He's got his website, ironin.com, I think. So a lot of us are doing this, and I found out about that as I'm doing my own thing. So that's what we want to kind of try to continue to do. I'm feeling a lot better these days, but it comes back around. So tying that into security with imposter syndrome and burnout, which Jack Daniel has done a lot of great work on, a lot of great talks on, keeping that conversation going, because it'll eventually die out. And like when I'm feeling better, like I'm not really thinking about it that much, but being there for other people. So that's what I hope to do. And even me, man, sometimes my website doesn't get updated as much as it should, because when you want to help, but you're still going through it, like if you don't see new stories on there, it's probably because I got in a down spiral. But I want to be honest about it and say, this shit happens. The best of the intentions gets ruined by this thing you can't control, right? It's there, and it gets exponentially worse with how I cope with things, which is like, excess, and like my thing is eating, which I finally got under control, and booze and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, man, there are ways that I know we'll start talking about how to cope with it. And the biggest way is just to talk and be in that community. And we have a lot of really supportive people in our community, which I'm finding, and it makes me fall deeper in love with this thing that we have every single day. So yeah. By the way, I also talk a lot, so
that's okay. So Megan, I guess one thing we should say is that what works for Danny won't necessarily work for everybody else. It's very much a custom solution. You talk about that, when you're doing pen tests where they're like, oh yeah, we don't use Metasploit anymore. We create our own custom solution because it's more effective for you. So, I don't know if you've ever had to deal with burnout, Megan, at all, but what do you tell people who had to deal with these kinds of things, and how do you cope with, when you just say, well, I don't want to see a screen anymore? I mean, what do you do to cope with that kind of thing?
So I have to laugh because yes, I do deal with burnout a lot. And so I also have anxiety kind of bad. So it's gotten to the point where I realize that like more than like a drink or two, and it really triggers my anxiety. There was that infamous drunk hacker history moment where I drank way too much. Everybody drank way too much. It was awful. But aside from getting sick on stage, which, high point, right? um, that triggered a massive panic attack that felt like it lasted all night.
Yeah.
So that was huge to realize that alcohol does that. But it was great because that's never happened before. And I was surrounded by people in the community that I knew, and they were able to help anchor me. So I just wanted to also touch what Danny said about our community being amazing about that kind of thing.
Very nice. So what was it? What was the anxiety? Was it the fact that you realized that you had overindulged and that you were worried about what other people were going to think about you, and that's what helped trigger the anxiety? Or is it just built, did it build up over that and that's what caused it?
I think that's what started it. And then also, I was also worried, like, not only did I embarrass myself, I embarrassed my friends, my company, my best friend, Nikita, who was also on the stage.
Yeah.
So when you're having an anxiety attack, you can't really think your way through it.
Yeah.
So whenever someone's like, oh, you can just talk yourself out of it, I'm like, you've never had an anxiety attack,
right?
Have you?
Right.
Because what happens is it's a chemical reaction in your brain when an anxiety attack happens, and it's like a surge of adrenaline. Mm-hmm. And so you have that fight or flight response, mm-hmm. and it just keeps fueling and fueling. So if you don't have a place where you feel safe or someone there to anchor you, it can get really, really bad very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, I made a mistake the first DerbyCon that I went to, where I ended up overindulging. I think it was probably a rookie mistake for myself. I couldn't feel my feet, and then I was worried about that lady at the bar just kept feeding me glasses of wine. But you get that where it's like you're almost at the point where your judgment is impaired, and then you're like, oh man, okay, yes, maybe I didn't, and then you've got to find some kind of corner to go hide in for a little while, and then you're like, the next day you're like, oh my God, did I make an idiot of myself? And in this industry, if you don't have a reputation, or it's just starting out, that can be damaged in an instant, and people don't forget these things. We're like big elephants all over the place where we don't forget these things, and it galvanizes people. So it's very much a popularity type thing in high school. I equate it to high school. It's like a big popularity contest, which the imposter syndrome thing you guys mentioned is something too. I mean, hearing that people actually listen to the show, and it bothers me, because I'm like, I'm nobody. Me and Mr. Betcher, well, I mean, I'm nobody. Mr. Betcher, he's actually somebody now. He's got something else outside the podcast, but I started with nothing. I was just some guy on the street who said, well, I want to start talking about things. I'm still not somebody, I just, have an audience that, it just feels weird to have people go, hey, I listened to your show. It still does, even to this day. And it makes me nervous, because I'm like, well, am I what they expected, or do I live up to what they expected? If I don't, I need to fix that, or I need to do something to fix it. Me and Miss Wu, Miss Megan started CSEC East, which is in Seattle here. And every month I go to that, and I'm always the first person there, and I get like such flop sweat, because I don't know if people are actually going to show up every month. Yeah. And, it's like, do they actually get a benefit out of what we're doing, or if it's, they just come because of the food? I don't know. So how do we deal with, sorry, Mr. Betcher?
I said maybe both.
What?
And that's okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, I mean, what point does it get better?
Well, it never gets better. Well, so the trick is, and I kind of want to touch on this later. And you can cut me off if we want to touch on it later, but we as a group, like an industry community, whatever, are really bad about negative self-talk and the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves.
What?
So like, kind of, for example, right? When you're like, oh, nobody really listens to the show. And then when someone tells you that they listen to this show, you're like, what? Why?
Oh,
When,
Why would you tell me that?
right. Or like, why do you listen to it? Or like when someone, this kills me. Every time a customer is like, oh, I follow you on Twitter, I just look at them like, why?
yeah,
What's your name so I can block you?
Right.
yeah. Twitter's stalking you.
Because I mean, we tell ourselves, we're just like, oh, we're nobody. Who am I to talk on this? And it feeds into that imposter syndrome, that whole negative self-talk.
Mm.
So we got to kind of work on that on an individual thing. And it's hard, dude.
It really is. And especially because not all motivations or not all the demons feeding the imposter syndrome are the same from person to person. Like for me, mine is informed a lot by the business aspect of things. I have fun stories about a company which should rename nameless, but it gave me fire in my eyes.
Oh goodness.
I actually worked for this company twice, and
That was good.
and it was my dream job. Actually, I worked for the company they acquired. Anyway, and my dream gig, like one of my first infosec gigs, and I was like, holy shit, I'm at the game, man, like it's awesome. And then business happens, and like, hey, sorry, man, we got to make cuts, first in, last out, that kind of thing. So that takes a hit, especially when you're early in like your developmental stage of security, because everything with us is a fire hose. And it's a little bit relevant now. It was even 4 or 5 years ago. You had to be like a generalist, not even a generalist, really good at being a generalist. So then you're like, oh my God, like maybe I wasn't good enough, whatever. And then I went back, and then it happened again. They did cuts again, those twice.
Ouch.
And this is not to disparage them or whatever. This is informing the story. So lest I get an email from an old colleague going, "What are you doing, bro?" But when that happens, and it had absolutely nothing to do with me being bad or at my job or not knowing enough or whatever, but that's just the business is very, cutthroat, and it's some dude or some lady, with a spreadsheet and a red marker saying, you go, you go, you go, who don't know you never reported to them, that they are making the business decision. But particularly in our industry, I mean, hackers are hackers. Like we are this, whether we have a gig in this or not. It is a lot of how we define ourselves as people, as problem solvers, as lovers of curiosity. And when somebody tells you, like, you can't be here anymore, you have to go and go find something else, that hits you as a person. And that for me it informed it. And then I imagine to not that as deep of an extent, when you get like a bad performance review, or just like you got to go through a reorg and now you're doing like some job that you didn't want to do, or just whatever, or like God forbid you lose your job and then there's a downturn in the economy, like that hits you as a person. And these things cascade and they stack, right? And they don't just slide off. So you have to deal with the increased weight of all of this over an extended time frame. And I think that's how burnout happens. Jack Daniels said it best. He was like, burnout doesn't happen, imposter syndrome doesn't happen right away. It creeps. And there are signs, and there are road marks that you might not see, and it accumulates. So no matter how many like podcasts that me and my crew do, no matter how like awesome opportunities I have like to come on Brakesec, or like I've done some work with Squirrel, and they're like, hey, come do a webinar for us. I'm like, cool. And I work for a really fantastic company and people like what I have to say. I still sit there going, oh no, I still don't know enough. When everybody is telling me, no, dude, you're cool, like you're in, it doesn't matter. And it starts to affect you. A lot. So, yeah,
Yep.
so that's how it informed it for me.
Yeah. Mr. Betcher, you've been very quiet, so you don't appear to have any issues. I mean, you jumped onto this bandwagon with me about 3.5 years ago, and now you're doing your LogMD stuff, and you're starting to get your name out there in the malware world. Have you had or struggled with any issues like depression or anything like that?
No, at least I don't recognize it. I don't think so. There was a point a few months ago where health started becoming an issue, and I sort of put that almost first, put family and my health first, and backed off of what I was doing, because at least at that point I recognized it, because I was hurting pretty bad, and I had to get better. But it didn't affect my full-time job. It just affected somewhat the things I was doing on the side, which was okay, because I knew that I could come back even stronger later. I haven't really had an issue with depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. But and I'm sure there's a lot of people like me who don't get affected by what other people say. I just kind of do my own thing, and hopefully I'm recognized for it. And if not, that's okay. The only depression or anxiety that I've dealt with in others was somebody who took advantage of that and tried to use that as an excuse not to work, to take extended vacation and things like that. So it puts a really bad example onto this whole thing of depression, which is a serious issue. I don't have to go to work. I can only work 6 months out of the year. And if you say something about it, well, I've got this FMLA, I'll come back at you. You can't fire me. I deserve this. And I'm going to cry depression if you try to do something as a company or as a manager, try to come after me, because that's not right. That's taking advantage of my situation, things like that. And my question is, from somebody who hasn't dealt with someone with real depression that I know of, how can I recognize the signs of real depression, of anxiety, so that I can be that person, that anchor for them? Because I really do care about my peers. Maybe I just don't recognize something deeper is going on here that's going to affect that person in the long term if I don't step in and help.
That's a good question. Most managers need to understand that too, because maybe we like to hide that kind of stuff, but in our work performance that will come out. So does anybody have any thoughts or ideas about that?
So
after you.
Oh, thanks. But so what I was going to say was, at least for myself, I'm really bad about when I have a really bad period of anxiety, right? When I feel it flare up or something like that, I try to tough it out. And I think a lot of us do that. And I just kind of heads down. I'll try to maybe I can work harder. If I work harder, I can get through it. Or what's really bad is when all of a sudden someone who is really talkative goes silent. And so that's something I'm really guilty of, is when I'm feeling super anxious, I just kind of shut down. I'm just okay, I can do these 5 things, and that's it. It's usually eating, maybe doing some the bare minimum for work to get by and get through this, sleeping, and then whatever, right? So that's probably one of the biggest things to keep an eye out for, is a shift in personality, right? But some of us are really good at hiding it too. We don't want to be a bother to our friends. And then also, some of us don't want to admit that level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
because it's a huge thing to be like, hey, Brian, my anxiety is really messing with me right now. Do you mind if I talk to you about it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It freaks people out. It's hard, dude.
Yep.
So
it's interesting how anxiety manifests itself. About 3 months ago, I don't know what was going on in my life at the time, but I remember waking up at about, I don't know, midnight, and I had a flop sweat. I was just like sweating from head to toe, and my chest was like, it felt like something was crushing my chest. And first thing I thought it was like, oh God, I'm having a heart attack and I'm 38, you know? And, you know, I was like, well, let me check my pulse, whatever, you know? And I just let it sit there, and I started, you know, calming down and everything, because I realized that, well, I was sweating profusely, and I got up and I walked around a little bit, and it got a little better. And I went in to see my doctor in the checkup, and I was like, he's like, if you had any, you know, any medical issues or anything like that? And I was, well, I was having some chest pains a couple of months ago. And he's like, chest pains? And I was like, well, yeah, but they went away.
yeah.
He's like, okay. He's like, you didn't go to the hospital? I was like, well, no, I could still breathe and I wasn't dying. And my Fitbit said I still had a relatively good pulse. So I didn't see any real reason to go. And he's like, look, you don't play with that.
No.
You know, you don't neglect your health in that respect. You come into the doc. So he hooked me up to an EKG, and we took EKG, and thankfully I'm not dead and my heart is good. But he said, you know, you've got some anxiety that you need to deal with. And I was like, I don't even know what it is that I'm dealing with, you know? And so I've started like doing meditation to kind of calm myself, you know. Some of it may have been job related. I don't know. You know, a lot of what affects me is like my insecurity with my job, because I don't have imposter syndrome. I just have I don't see why they keep me, because I've obviously don't have the same skills as everyone else in the group, and I'm feeling like I don't belong there anymore. And I know
that's imposter syndrome.
No, that's just I don't know how I fit in the or it is.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the definition. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought imposter syndrome was like, well, you know, everybody's like, oh, you're so great, and I'm like, no, I'm not. But this is like,
no.
Well, that's one kind of it. But what you just described is like the most common version.
Oh. See, I don't. My schooling was in IT, so I didn't do like organizational behavior like Ms. Wu did. So I'm sure you went through some of this in your classes, right? Did you discuss any organizational psychology or anything like that?
So that's more like therapeutic type stuff, and I messed up enough on my own. I don't need other people. I'd be like worried to take that much responsibility for other people's feelings and well-being when I'm struggling to take care of my own feelings and well-being.
Right. So yeah, I still struggle with the I guess the imposter syndrome stuff, because I always wonder if, every time I hear that new positions are open at my job, I'm like, okay, obviously they're going to replace me because they're hiring 3 other people and whatever. They don't need me anymore. They're going to hire these folks, and then it's be like, they don't need this guy anymore, and cut you loose. I still struggle with that, even when I don't. Well, I guess I've always had that problem then. So,
yeah.
Wow, I feel like I need a couch and I need to lay down. And like, who do I charge $300 an hour and stuff? So.
Dude, funny enough, those couches actually help.
It does. They do help.
Very cool. All right, so job insecurity is one thing. Some people worry about their job. What about the workplace? The workplace can be...
Hang on.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, he didn't talk about...
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah.
The signs.
The signs.
Oh, sure. So, you hit on a lot of them, that change. So for me, anybody who's known me for more than 10 minutes knows I like to talk, and I can be animated, and like I love what I do. When I find something interesting, I'm just out there. I used to work in radio for a bunch of years, and when I get down, I'll just clam right the hell up. And so I'm kind of obvious like that, and at the same time, what do we always hear about somebody who commits suicide that we don't that surprises us. Oh, they seem so fine. Like nobody's
Yeah.
gonna come out and tell you. And it's as frustrating as that could be. Sometimes there just aren't any. So it's just keeping up those relationships. We have that a lot in this community where, I mean, we only see each other, 2-3 times a year. And you never really know what's going on in somebody's life. So I have found from like my own studies of like social engineering and studying those principles of like active listening, right? Active listening is just so has just opened up my own ways of like talking to people and really listening to what they're saying. Seeing what they post on Twitter, and seeing how those kind of patterns might change. But yeah, a lot of times you're not gonna know. Some people are more obvious than others, and some people want to talk about it, and some people don't. That's a really hard question to answer, because yeah, you're never gonna know. But like you said, it's gonna be those behavior changes like out of the norm, and just trying to keep listening for things that they might be trying to tell you. Like you have a friend or like a coworker who out of the blue says, yeah, I just had a bad day, or you overhear a conversation like, you know, try to work with them and try to, bring it out of them. There can be clues, but a lot of times there's not going to be.
Yeah.
You just, it's almost harder for the people that we love and who love us and want to see us succeed, because we're gonna sabotage that by not telling them, and then they're gonna feel even worse because they thought they could have done something to stop it or something to help, when there is just, there's a lot that you just can't do, except be there to listen. And the other part of that is when you are lucky enough to have somebody that you can help and that does want your counsel or wants to vent to you, everybody feels like they have to fill silence, right? Which is also like another. It's amazing how many principles that I see can fall into this, of like those pregnant pauses and that kind of thing. Sometimes it is just listening. You don't have to have answers for them, right? Don't pressure yourself to think you have to have answers. Just be there to listen. And that's really 9 times out of 10, man. For me, that helps. Like just have myself talking and have somebody like to talk to, like, that little rubber duck that you have like a debugging problem that you talk to. Like it's pretty much the same principle. But yeah, that's just that. It's that thing of just being there and listening to somebody. But no, man, like it's never going to be obvious a lot of the times, and that's really the frustrating part about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't want to be obvious because they're worried that what they're going through is going to be a burden, or at least for me, right? So when I'm feeling really anxious or depressed or stuff like that, I clam up because I'm like, well, other people are going through the same thing. And if I bug them, I'm inconveniencing them or I'm making it worse for them. And that's not true, but it's also hard to convince yourself that it's not true.
Or like it's also poor me and my poor problems. I'm in a negative unemployment field and I get to do interesting things, and woe is me because I'm starving in India. There's that too, where you don't want to.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
And the only time that I never feel imposter syndrome is like when I'm depressed. Like I know I'm depressed. Like I'm good at being depressed. I excel at being depressed. Yeah, so it's lessening your own feelings, right? It's saying I don't deserve to be happy about this, and I sure as hell don't deserve to have friends that are going to listen to this. So I'm not going to burden them with this, and that doesn't help matters either.
That just compounds it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, like I said, it all cascades, man. Your head is a tricky place.
Yeah, it's a spiral. It and it begets
Whirlpool,
more
yeah.
negative behavior because you
Mhm.
close off, then your friends are like, well, what's wrong with you, or and then that breeds shame or additional stuff, and it just it just double downs and it causes more problems.
The other really difficult thing for people that are supporting, friends that are having problems or whatever, it's not easy. Like I will take things out on people because I'm not thinking straight, or I'm angry or upset. So there's like an irrationality that happens sometimes, and it's hard. It's hard on people when you're really down in it. So that also makes
Yep.
things difficult. Um, especially in such a like uh, a small field that we're in. When you think about it, everybody knows somebody else, and if this stuff starts permeating into like your public persona, and you screw one thing up, miss a con,
Mhm.
can't fulfill an obligation because you're just too fucking sad. Or I don't know if you guys want to edit that. You can edit that out. We don't have a filter on Rally to
Now
have
there's
one.
going to be an explicit tag on their podcast
it's
because
fine.
of you.
It's cool.
And then people who aren't your friends, and they just know like from your name or whatever, like those few people, and then that reputation builds,
Yep.
and then so there's that risk. But yeah, that is like that little spiral, or like I referenced Jason Street's, I think it was his 2015 keynote at Skydog. He talked about this a lot. It was actually that talk that got me mode to get help. I watched that talk when I was really, really down. I think I was like laying in bed for like the 12th hour, and I was watching that talk, and I was like, man, okay, cool. So, and I messaged you all the time. Thank you for that. But yeah, and then your reputation suffers, and then you get
Mhm.
we're really good at blacklisting people and saying like,
Yeah.
that guy's a jerky, you missed out on this, and it comes back to listening to people, that you want to chip in with. So it's a big question, to look for signs and how to deal with that. We had a whole separate subset of questions for our thing, of people who are just supporting people, and all of them want to know how they can help better. And it's one of the important and difficult questions to answer.
Yeah. I figured out why Mr. Betcher is so well adjusted. He came from a development background where he was a god, so he's he came into
No,
security.
I'm a terrible developer. Otherwise, I'd probably be a developer. But
Oh, is that
no.
why you couldn't hack it as a developer? So you come into infosec, you're just bringing your trash with
Nice.
us. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. No, so like most people in infosec, when we feel bad or whatever, we want to feel good again. So we embrace our vices. We begin to self medicate. We we go to hacker summer camp and we tie one on. Everybody probably has a story where they have overindulged. We heard one tonight, and I have also shared one as well. One thing I saw literally today was at Defcon this year, which we were recording this on June 30th of 2017, but I don't know if this has ever been there before, but somebody posted what is called the Friends of Bill W. Now, I still go on cruises a lot. They have organizations like Friends of Bill W., which is for like people who struggle with alcohol addiction or drug addiction or whatever. Because on the ships, on cruise ships, alcohol is just ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You can't really get away from it. It's it's everywhere. So we're now having an infosec con with another event for people who have issues with alcohol in a place like Vegas, which is, I would say, known for its overindulgence. Is this something new? Is this something that has been around before?
Yeah, it's been around for a couple of years now. I want to say 5.
Okay. Well, maybe they just didn't advertise it before. So
I think they just called it Al-Anon or something like that. It was always on the map, and they like always let it known let it be known that the meetings were happening. I actually had to Google what Friends of Bill W was, because I'm like, what's this? Is this like a new party? And I'm like, oh, no, that's cool. That's really awesome. I just haven't heard it called that before. So.
Well, I guess it was a way of hiding in plain sight. So before we started recording, like on cruise ships back in the day, before they, it became more accepted, they had what was called the Friends of Dorothy, which was the LGBTQ people who were on the ship who, were coming to, help cope, or, I don't know what it was, because I never went. I just saw it in the ship's itinerary for the day. Now they just call it, get-togethers with the LGBT people on the ship. Friends of Bill W is still Friends of Bill W, because I guess there's still a stigma there. I would assume the Friends of Dorothy thing they had was because they didn't want, there was a stigma there that it no longer exists in many circles. So we have issues with alcohol consumption, and people who have issues with alcohol go to a place that they, are going to be exposed to that stuff. Do we need, as a community, to start, I don't say like stigmatizing the overuse of overindulgence, but do we need to maybe clean up the image of what Defcon and BlackHat and those things are, as, bender week kind of events where there's a lot of alcohol? Or maybe we need to, have more options for non-alcoholic related events. Because I know DerbyCon has BourbonCon, which, but that's what they're known for. And I understand that. It's not like you're going to go crazy and do whatever. But, I mean, there are events out there that are dedicated just to imbibing of the alcohol.
We don't need to stigmatize it. We just don't need to celebrate it.
Yeah.
As much as we do.
Sorry, I used wrong turn of phrase. Yes, we don't need to make it forefront or celebrate it.
And I say this as somebody who is an avid drinker. I definitely can use it for the wrong thing sometimes. But sometimes I'll just not do it for months at a time. But it's fun, right? Like it's a lot of great fun, and there's a lot of great times to be had, and a lot of jokes, and it's very sociable or whatever. I don't think. I mean, security or anything else. I don't think we have to be as proud of it as we are to be excessive. I personally don't see it. I mean, not that you imply that there's anything wrong with like BourbonCon or whatever.
No, there's not.
But no, there was actually a long thread on Twitter. Johnny Xmas did about that, and it actually had it ended up being a really great conversation about having more dry get-togethers, and like somebody's got to spearhead that. So yeah, that there is always room to have everybody included. So yeah, maybe a bigger push. I mean, DEFCON, like I think as it is now, is such this gargantuan effort that a lot of these things have to be spearheaded by the people who attend. Like there's that follow DEFCON parties. There's people that organize their own their own stuff all the time. So somebody's got to take those reins and be responsible for that. I don't know that I would ever hold any con accountable to do that, but we certainly don't need to like have an officially sanctioned blackout week.
Yeah.
But this falls to the community. Like it's literally be the change you want to see. Like I know for my event at DEFCON this year, like there's no official drinking involved. Like you go to Hacker Jeopardy or whatever, and of course there's going to be booze and that's fine. It's fun. And I didn't make a conscious effort to not have booze in mine. It just so happens we don't need it, and that's fine. So you can feel cool to come there, and like it's not going to be too triggering for you, like if you have that kind of problem. So it's just going to have to be people wanting to be the change, or wanting to do the change that they want to see.
So I think there's a lot of people who try to push that. I don't know if I would call it responsibility or whatever, but a lot of people would try to push that, the Vegas week is, full of drinking is because of the cons, but that's not necessarily true, right? I mean, if I'm honest with myself and I sit and I think about it, every time I've gotten like really, really, really drunk, it's been with a group of friends at a bar. That one exception, there's that one exception, on the stage, but nobody forced me to drink, right? So it was always me making the conscious effort to be like, yes, I want another one and another one and another one, right?
Yeah.
And even like when I presented at Defcon, everybody's like, oh, first time speakers have to drink, have to take a shot on stage. That's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not true. And I think they actually prefer if you don't give your first talk blitzed. It might help with the nerves, but I think sometimes we try to shirk the responsibility a little bit. And other times, we're so wound up and so hyper focused at work and at home. And then we get to Vegas and we're with our friends and we're relaxed and, oh yeah, I'll have another one and another one. And that kind of leads to that, kind of blackout thing. And, we joke, we drink to forget because of, the situations at work and that, the stuff that we see our users do and stuff like that. But I've noticed that once, as soon as I told a couple of my friends that I'm like, hey, I don't really want to drink at con, maybe one or two a night and that's it. People were really good about like keeping an eye out for me, because after one or two drinks, it's harder for someone to say no when the bartender's like, oh, you want another, right?
Yep. So
I've been lucky to have friends that be like, hey, you said you only wanted one or two. I'm not mothering you or policing you.
But
yeah, I think that the problem we run into then is, you're this is we just met today.
Yeah.
You seem capable of saying no.
Right.
There are those among us that can't do that.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
still want to be part of this thing. They're still part of our community, and they're still hackers, and they have, it is their illness that is telling them that if they're around this, they're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And just to have those spaces for them to make that trigger a little less like hair trigger, right? So
oh, absolutely.
So and that was an important distinction that I never really thought of. Because I'm not an alcoholic. It seems like it sometimes, but I'm really not, because I can just stop and not care. But during that thread that Johnny started, he was like, no. He goes, I'm not talking about that. And he goes, I'm talking about those of us who like actually can't say no to it.
Can't function without a drink. Yeah.
Right. Or I've been on the wagon for a very long time, and every event that we schedule with everybody, from like all the vendor parties and all the DJ parties and stuff, like they're all filled, they're all booze fueled, and that's just the way things are, and there's not a lot for them to do, but they still want to hang, they're still our friends. So how do we do that? And should there be a bigger push by these cons to do something official? Like, yes, we have to be our own change, but should the cons get involved? Like they, is it their place to be, that social change? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
It's that's not for me to decide.
Yeah. I think it would be up to the individual cons. Like, I think what DEF CON's doing with the Friends of Bill W, having a dedicated room for those people. And, even their friends, because I've heard, they go and support their friends because, it makes it easier for them. Okay. So I don't think there should be a huge push, because we all see what happens when you try to push conference organizers to do something. They kind of rebel against it naturally. So if we just say, hey, here's an idea, and then run with it if it rings true for your conference or whatever.
Yeah. And there's enough subcons and stuff going on in there. I mean, TiaraCon's going on. So, I mean, are you going to miss yet another event that's going on during Defcon? There are, yet another event. If you don't want to go to whatever's going on in the main floor or whatever, you've always got options. It's Vegas, so you've got tons of other stuff. If you don't even want to go to the infosec con, you can go and be out in 115 degree heat. So
but there's that fear of missing out, though.
True, very true.
So that we also have to keep in mind. Yeah. It's hard.
Exactly. So we have so much going on, and often we find out, feel that there's things that are missing in our lives. So my office is office and studio. So this is the cleanest it's been in literally a month, and I walk into it every morning when it was messy and all get out, and I'm like, man, I really need to clean this thing. And these kinds of things just pile, and I haven't been to the gym in a week, whatever. I find often that if I'm feeling down, just doing something like going out for a walk or straightening up my desk, which it does need to be straightened. The floor is perfect. It's just the desk is kind of a mess. But these things weigh on me in addition, the fact that, I haven't been to the gym or, whatever. So what are some coping mechanisms that we can have for when we get down to help us with maybe create a sense of accomplishment to kind of boost our the negativeness, and kind of push it away for a while? Is it small things like, cleaning your desk or, going out for a walk or taking up Pokemon Go or Ingress or whatever to help, get your mind off of the normal drudgeries of every day? What are some of those coping mechanisms that you guys use specifically?
So, for me at least, and this can help with both burnout and our imposter syndrome, is giving back to the community, right? So if you suffer from a really bad case of like, I'm an imposter, I shouldn't be here, whatever, write a talk, write a blog, mentor somebody. Like, you need to build your own ego up, because we've been raised and taught to say that having a big ego is bad or blah blah blah. No, ego is good. Ego is a survival mechanism. So doing a mentor program like my friend at Jimmy Vo, Jimmy has a mentor program and he spun up a couple months ago, and it's doing great, right? So there's that. Share the knowledge that you do have, because when you start to do that, you'll be amazed at how much knowledge you really have, and it's gonna be like, wow, like I actually know what the hell I'm talking about. Because the more you actually know, the less you're gonna find people saying, oh no, you're wrong about this. Well, actually no, you're not, because here's why. And you find that out by writing and just being able to give back. So that's how I try to combat that, and it does help. And as far as burnout goes, do something else. It doesn't,
Yes.
It's hard. Like, it's really hard, because my something else is this. It's being in front of a terminal and learning something cool and something new. It's not helping my brain to detach and give it a rest.
Yeah.
I recently buckled down on, and did like some retail therapy, and I bought a PS4, and I just go in Grand Theft Auto and just shoot people. Okay, no, that sounds. I say it out loud.
You're on a watch list now, buddy.
Oh my goodness.
Virtually shoot people.
Yeah.
Right.
Virtually.
Right.
In Grand Theft Auto, from the watchtower where the helicopters can't get you. No. Sounds a lot worse coming out in actual words. But no, just turning off, right? Like, that requires no critical thought except trying to the cops not find me. Just if you have, get a cat, get a dog, just do something that's not this.
Yeah.
My other thing is improv comedy. I started doing that as a way to study social engineering. Because I heard the panel talk at Derby from like Grifter and Deviant and those guys. Like, that's a great idea. And I have an improv group like down the street, from where I live. And so I started taking those classes just to get out of my head. It started being tied to what I do. But as you get more into it, like you learn what you learn about it, and then you're an improv and you're learning that kind of stuff. So
Very
do
cool.
something else.
Very cool.
But that's my ways.
Yeah.
What do you deal?
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize what you were saying, like do something else. That's so important. And so Brian kept referencing my Twitter rant. So it wasn't really a rant. It was like
diatribe. No.
Diatribe, I guess. But yeah.
Monologue.
So monologue. Chris Sanders wrote a really great post called The Cult of Passion.
Yeah.
And so that's what like kind of started the whole thing. Is he was like, we're so passionate, or we'd like to say that we're passionate about infosec, and our jobs want us to be passionate and blah blah blah. And no, that's not good.
Yeah.
It's good for us to be curious and for us to be interested in what we're doing, but passion leads to burnout. Right? Passion is not sustainable. So kind of what I do. So I do a couple of different things. I started a cooking blog. So that's been fun. I love to cook. I take really pretentious pictures of my food and I post it on Instagram. Oh my God, Brian, I actually bought a camera just to take pictures of my food.
Shut up.
I'm going to start taking pictures of other stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I justified it like, oh yeah, it's a family camera for vacations that I don't take.
You should get the new food book that Alton Brown did. He's got his camera, dude. He was laying on a bed eating fries and stuff. You should do like camera pictures with you and him, doing that stuff. So
there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like cooking, I love to cook and come up with new recipes that are healthy, because otherwise I'm going to eat crap and feel like crap.
Right.
So by cooking and doing this, I'm also tricking myself to eating better.
Yep.
Right. So mental health is really tied to gut health. And a lot of people, like there's a saying that, your stomach is your second brain.
Right.
So the reason for that is they found that there's a lot of the same, like gut flora, or not flora, but like a lot of the different receptors and stuff in your brain that are also present in your gut. So, when you feel anxious and your stomach kind of like knots up and you get like nervous and you feel like you got to poop or something, or you're going to throw up or whatever, it's going to come out one way or the other.
Yeah.
That's why. Right. So I'm like, okay, so if I start taking care of the mental stuff, I should also start taking care of, what I actually eat, because it's tied together. And I started noticing like, oh, when I eat this, I feel bad about myself, or I feel worse or sluggy or whatever. So that's one thing to do. And then I also cross stitch, which is a really freaking type A hobby to have, in case you didn't know. So it's like pixel art, but with thread.
Yeah. Pixel art.
So yeah. So that's
my
been
sister
pretty
used to
fun.
do that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, just creative outlets are also good, because most of us like really rely on our left brain. So to kind of improv is another great example of creativity that doesn't involve any kind of like putting pen to paper or stuff like that,
Right, exactly. And it really gets you out of your head and into that moment. Also, I'm writing a talk right now of parallels between improv comedy and SE, because there are a lot that I discovered. And that goes into that active listening. Like you have to be in the moment, like listen and respond. Yes. And if you're doing this and you're doing scenes and you're just being stupid and being funny, 2 hours in, you're like, wow, what was I upset about, earlier today? And it gets tricky because you're depressed and don't want to go at all, and then you stay home and eat Cheetos. But if you take the step out that door, if you find something that's going to be fun, that involves like cooking, like and paying attention to details, right? Like use the things that you make you be good not doing your job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, and also reading. I love to read fiction. So kind of like, also video games. So I love murder.
Right, exactly.
So there you
Very
go. There's my weird soundbite,
Yeah.
right? So I love, like, the more screwed up the murder is, the more about it I am.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes I'll just shoot a grenade into a bunch of cars so everybody sets on fire.
Yeah.
Therapeutic.
And the book, I mean, so I've started, like, I blog about the food, right? So I also have, like, at the end of the month, I post, this is what I'm reading. And I'm like, oh, this is good, but there wasn't enough murder.
Yeah. Body count was way too low. Yeah.
Right. Way too low.
Yeah.
This wasn't therapeutic enough.
No.
Yep.
But then video games, I usually do action RPGs. So, like, we're on our second playthrough of Persona 5, which is a Japanese RPG. And then Borderlands is, like, my favorite. Borderlands and, like, the BioShock.
Okay.
And the important thing about this is to tell yourself it is okay to do this. One of the things that I suffer from is that if I am not constantly learning something new, if I am not, advancing my skill set in something tech related, I am failing, or I am not going as fast as I need to go. No, man, you just stop. It is okay to sit and watch Big Brother for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's relevant because there's a 2-hour premiere over I did not feel bad about watching.
Wow.
It's no trash. Well, that's not really trash TV I watched. It's one I'll admit to. But it's okay. Like, it's okay if your couch is just comfortable. You probably need it. That's your brain telling you, like, your brain screaming, don't go back into the room. Like, I work remotely. So, which also compounds the issue of my office is in my home, right? So it is hard and impossible to untie your brain from that. And I know a lot of us work remotely, and that's a whole other skill set in and of itself. And then when you tie yourself so close to your work, and your work is in your house, and it's just, right? It's hard. It's okay. You can do that. It's, and then there's the excess of it. Like, you have to stop at some point and go back to work. But there's a balance, but it's okay to shut off and just do nothing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Betcher, do you have any thoughts or suggestions about how to make how to keep yourself going crazy?
This podcast is for me, right? So I can it'll help me, like, why I don't suffer from mental health, at least that I know of, but hopefully I can recognize the signs, right, and be there to help, right? Because consider myself a good listener. I don't try to interrupt people and tell my own story based on some key word that they said. I'm there to listen to your point of view, things like that.
And just so you know, I mean, and you said a really key phrase right there: be there to help. Being there is helping. Like, there's no follow on action after being there. Just being there is helping.
Yep. And then also, I think it's important for us to also touch on the fact that sometimes hobbies aren't enough, and you're going to feel really crappy and really down, and it's okay to go to counseling or therapy. There's
I completely glossed over that, but
there's this weird stigma around mental health and going to get help. And I'm totally a hypocrite because I should probably have a therapist, but I don't. And I have a lot of respect for people who are like, hey, I can't handle this on my own. And that's okay. So there's a lot of different ways that you can find therapists. You can Google, like, best therapist in my area. Psychology Today has this way to search for therapists in your area. Or there's
knowing the difference between psychiatrists and psychologists, and meds or no meds, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because different types of therapy work for different types of people.
Yeah, maybe
know,
just
people
going
that
to massage envy would be, something that's relaxing that you could,
my wife has a
Yeah.
my wife has a membership.
spa day, have a spa day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to
So-
those now.
Speaking of taking care of yourself, the only thing I can think of for myself is, and this is hard for people who travel a lot, is sleep. Get a good night's sleep. Get some,
Yes.
try to get as much sleep as possible. If you're flying into some place, don't stay out, late. Try to get in there and get some sleep, because I've noticed that sometimes when I go 3-4 days in a row where I'm only getting a couple hours or 3-4 hours of sleep, by that third or fourth day, I'm like, I can't think straight. My job, my thoughts process suffers. I can't seem to get things started at work, or, I get easily distracted. I go to bed, I get, 6 to 8 hours of sleep that next day, and I'm like, wow, what happened? It's a great day. Everything, your mental state is often, affected by the sleep or lack of. So try to get as much sleep as you can, especially if you are in a in a down moment. That will help you. I mean, you may not want to get out of bed anyway, but try to get sleep when you can. So
absolutely.
We didn't talk much about traditional infosec in this case, but I think mental health is if you don't take care of yourself, the infosec part is going to suffer. So I'm really glad we had this discussion. I would welcome people to reach out to the show and to our guests here to talk about, open a dialogue, keep talking about this, share your own experiences. Maybe we've, inspired somebody to, open up if they're, silently suffering. And if they are, please don't do so alone. Reach out to myself or Miss Wu or Danny or somebody and just talk about it. 'Cause it will continue to affect you if you don't talk about it. So
and that's why we started our Slack channel. It's at infosec.org. It's small. There's not a lot of people. I mean, there's 20, 30 people, but there are people who are both trying to deal and people who are just there to help. Sometimes it's really active, sometimes it's not, but that's just the nature of things. So we created it so you have that spot. I am giving and just a little spot on the interwebs where you can go and talk to people who are dealing with the same professional challenges you are and some of the same personal challenges. And it's also important to emphasize, because I had like one person who was like, "Oh, you're over, statisticalizing, whatever, I'm not even a word, that we have like a higher preponderance of this." No, but you start where you live, right? Like, I live here. This is my community. This is my people. This is where I'm starting. I'm not saying we have a higher rate of this. I'm not a scientist. I'm not saying that we're special snowflakes. This is where we start.
Yep.
And if we talk to each other, that's a step.
Yep.
And sometimes that's just the first step is the biggest one.
I would counter by saying we don't want it to become a bigger thing.
No,
we can head this off. We can be preventative. We don't have to be reactive or in a firefighting situation where the whole industry gets messed up in some way. So if we can head this off or have coping mechanisms or have a community that is more supportive than loner, then I think we'll be better off. So
absolutely,
right on.
I agree.
Well, Miss Wu, how would people, if they wanted to discuss this stuff, their mental health or, infosec in particular, if they're looking for, somebody to, help strategize their CIS benchmarks, how would they get a hold of you?
Probably the quickest and easiest way is on Twitter at Totenkopf. I respond to that the quickest.
Okay. All right.
So I'm always on Twitter. I'm usually just lurking or going on long diatribes about whatever interests
Ugly
me that
babies.
day. Ugly babies. Yeah.
Right
the
on.
worst.
Yeah.
I knew I was. I knew you looked familiar. I just followed you, but I followed you a long time ago.
InfoSec is like
Aw.
that. It's like we don't know people in real life until we see their Twitter handles, and it's like, oh right, you're rando, yeah. Or anyway. So Danny, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss mental health issues?
The absolute easiest way is I'm just a Twitter addict. I've been for the longest time. It's at BAKACKI. And I'm just that's me. I love Twitter, and I find it's probably the best medium for us to talk to each other. My DMs are always open, so I don't have to follow you. I don't do anything like that. Just reach out directly. Infosanity.org is always there. There's stories up there. There's some resources up there. And then if you want in on the Slack channel, there's directions right on the website about just email me. And we'll get you an invite. So yeah, I'm literally always on Twitter. It's probably a problem by now.
Cool. Yeah, we have links to everybody's Twitter handles and to infosanity.org and Jimmy Vo and my hacks, who works with Jimmy with the mentoring stuff. All that stuff is in our show notes on there. So Mr. Betcher, last but not least, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss LogMD or your prescient podcast last week about not last week, but about Petya that came out before Petya actually came out?
Yeah, it wasn't about Petya, but or not Petya, as I guess the real one was called. But yeah, it's just about ransomware in general. You can hit me up on Twitter at BetcherPwned.
Right on. Excellent. Yeah, so you can find Miss Berlin, who wasn't here this week, and she was very much missed because she would have definitely been able to add to this conversation, I think. You can find her at InfoSyster, INFOSYSTIR on Twitter. She's also very active on our Slack channel. So you can find me on Twitter at Brian Brake, BryanBrake. The official podcast is at Brakesec, BRAKESEC. Go see Danny on RallySec. He's at RallySec, RallySec podcast. Listen to that after you've listened to ours. Listen to ours first, but then listen to theirs. It's cool.
You're going to learn a lot more on Brakesec.
I highly doubt it. Everybody is special in their own way.
We're pretty much like the video version of shitposting.
Oh, well.
Oh, nice.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, we admit it. That's fine. That's just what we're there for.
Self-actualized. You're self-actualized.
Yeah, we serve a purpose.
That's
not
right.
a grand one or a noble one, but we serve something.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. We're doing all kinds of stuff. Our web application security class with Miss Sunny ended on Monday, the 28th. That went really well. Our next one is going to be Mick Douglas doing PowerShell for incident responders and blue teamers. If you've never used PowerShell before, we're going to go through that. It's going to be a 6-week course on Monday nights. You can join us at the $20 level on our Patreon. We'll sign you up for that. So if you go to patreon.com/BDS_podcast or look in the show notes, you can sign up for the class. And if you can't go to the class, we are going to make the videos available to you right after the class is over on our YouTube channel. So you can join at the $10 level for that. We've got quite a few people on there already signed up, so slots are really going fast. So if you are interested in learning PowerShell, blue team type stuff, frameworks, just basically how to use PowerShell, sign up for that class. So speaking of our Slack channel, you can sign up and go over to our Slack channel at brakesec.signup.team. We have a bot that will automatically sign you up. We are very active on our Slack channel. We have a lot of people on there talking about all kinds of different things. We have a job board. We have a leadership board that people like, who we got? Mr.
It's
Byer.
endless.
Who?
It's endless, man.
It is endless. Yeah, we have a malware channel. We have an OSINT channel. We got some pen testing stuff. If you are interested in anything or everything, we have a Python and automation channel for scripting stuff. We even have a random channel where you can just,
it's a water cooler for like-minded, man.
Yeah. Like Danny said, we have a random one for shit posting. So if you want to go and do some rando stuff in there, we don't have a lot of rules, so just be nice to one another. Don't be dick, and keep the politics out of it. So that's really the only rules we have about the Slack channel. So we also have our CTF club. We're still doing that. So we do that on Tuesday nights, and our book club is still going on for the next couple of weeks. We're doing Defensive Security Handbook with Miss Berlin. We have 2 sessions, one for the U.S. and one for the Euro folks in Asia, Tuesday morning around noontime Pacific. So a lot of stuff going on over here at Brakesec World Headquarters. Megan, Danny, thank you for joining us. I'm glad we had this talk. This is
It's so much fun, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is going to be one of probably the best podcasts of our year. So.
Oh shucks.
No, I mean it. We have every year we have
Megan.
podcasts. We're like, man, that was really good podcast, and this is going to be one of the ones that I mentioned when people are like, hey, which podcast do you think we should listen to first? I'll be like, this one and any of the ones with Hector Monseeger in it. So yeah. So this was awesome. So
It was great.
Can I make a quick plug for our Defcon contest?
yes, please, DEFCON contest. Yeah, Amanda would have said something otherwise. So yes, please.
Whose slide is it anyway? Is our official Defcon contest. We will be in track 4, Friday, Saturday, and I think Sunday morning for our hangover edition, which goes all
Thanks.
way
Nice.
way of not like alcoholizing everything. But yeah, it's going to be starting at 8 o'clock Friday and Saturday, and it's basically we make the slides. They could be actual slide decks from somebody. Like they're pretty much half and half actual decks that you have to kind of riff on, and just randomized PowerPoint ship posting. And you come up, and we have sponsors from Hack5, Trusted Sec, SE Inc., and Stitchery Hacks and Milton Security have all got a whole bunch of prizes. So you can sign up at Improv Hacker for a spot, and we're also going to pick people from the audience too. It's going to be a great time. We got some surprise guests. Jack Daniel is going to be there. Malware Jake's going to be there as guest judges. It's going to be a really awesome time. So come and hang out with us at DEFCON.
Awesome. Yeah. Go to DEFCON. Watch the BlackHat videos that Iron Geek are going to put up if you don't want to spend the skrill for that. I probably will try to go to DEFCON next year. Maybe not BlackHat, but see if the company will pay for me on that. So, all right. Well, that was it for this week on Breaking Down Security from the World Headquarters here. We all want you to stay safe, be nice to one another, and have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
That was really creepy. Bye-bye, Mr. Betcher.
I liked it.
Bye-bye.
I mean, we were talking about murder and stuff, so it works. It totally
Yeah, exactly. Murderousness. Yeah.
Well,
love murder.
Great.
All right.
My
You're still
favorite.
recording, so cut that out. Put it at the very intro beginning.
That's
type,
right.
and
I love murder.
people will be like, "What?"
Exactly.
Don't
man.
want to share a room with her.
Fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yes.
This is one of my highlights
Yeah.
of ever.
Yeah, you definitely. If you're at DerbyCon, please find us. We'll be there doing training beforehand, so the hotel won't be fully full. So we'll find one another at break time or whatever.
I already visualized in my head about where I'm probably gonna run into. It's gonna be like right in the lobby, probably near the bar. I'm gonna see you, and I'm just gonna bear hug the shit out of all.
I'll walk through the front door, and there'll be shining, like a light behind him. He'll be coming down the escalator. He'll be like, "Oh," and I'm like,
Don't bear hug DA though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I got him a schmoo real good.
yeah.
That was the first time like me and Tony actually ever like saw each other face to face.
Yeah.
And I saw him and he saw me. And I was just like, come here.
I just picture like,
Get all warm and fuzzy.
are you guys familiar with the Labyrinth? I just picture like Hoggle, where he's like,
Yes.
"Don't touch me, don't kiss me, don't."
Yep.
No, he hugged back. It was
Oh,
voluntary, mostly.
Yeah. Did he linger?
Did you
Cool.
respect the double tap?
Oh yeah, there you go. Double
Oh
tap.
no, I held on.
Oh, linger. You
Dude.
lingered.
It was like fist on the back, and it was like that.
Because after 8 seconds, you start making cortisol, so you start making a connection. It's one of those connection hugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't like that.
No, those are patented Tony hugs.
Nice. Very nice.
Nice.
We have this ongoing running joke. So he actually, I mean, he lived in Maryland for a while, but he took a road trip because he wanted White Castle with his wife.
Right.
Right. So like, and White Castles are only in very certain portions of the country. I happen to have one 15 minutes away from my house, and it didn't dawn on me that would be the closest one to him. He was literally 15 minutes from me, and now we make White Castle jokes all the time. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Nice.
That out loud.